Hi everyone, this video is going to be something a little bit different. So I'm not going to be painting in this video, but I'm going to be converting up a Space Marine captain. So this is going to be a gift for one of my friends. He's called Lawrence and he runs the Tabletop Tactics YouTube channel. So you may have seen that. And he's got a Space Marine captain in his army called Artemis. And he's always talking about how he wants Artemis to become Primaris. So I'm going to convert up Artemis in a Primaris suit just to modernize it a little bit. So this is a picture of Artemis. This is just a screenshot. So I'm going to try and make him look similar to that so he's recognizable as that character. I'm going to use various different sprues. I think I'm going to base him off one of the Inceptor bodies because he's already flying, and we'll pin him. And we'll give him some cool equipment. I'll probably give him a chain sword and a storm shield, so we'll upgrade him a little bit because the storm shield's quite good. And we'll see how we get on. So I'll just document it as we go through. So the next thing you'll see me probably choosing the parts I'm going to use, and then and I'll just show you how it's going to work, and we'll hopefully end up with a cool figure at the end of it. Okay, so I've got most of the parts clipped off that I think I want to use. I've not clipped off any of the arms yet because we'll pose up the arms a bit later, so we'll get to those a bit later. So I'm just going to use this Inceptor body and legs. That's from the Dark Imperium starter set. So that's for those, the main body and the legs. Going to use the chainsword from the Space Wolf upgrade sprue. So what I'm planning on doing is just going to cut it and basically stitch the two together to make it slightly longer, because obviously he's a captain, so he needs a big chainsword. I got a shoulder pad from the Vanguard Space Marine set, but that's going to look really cool on the captain. And this Ultramarine shoulder pad is off one of the Ultramarine Primaris miniatures, so that'll be cool on him. A bit of scenery. This is off the Venom Crawler. I think that'll be cool, so we'll stick him on there, and he'll look like he's flying. So we don't want to use a flying stand, and we'll actually attach him to that so it's nice and sturdy. This shield is from one of Marnius Calgar's Honor Guard, and I just think it'd be really great because it's got all the Ultramarine iconography on it, but it's actually going to be quite a bit of work to cut this arm off because we want to repose it, and it's got a bit of cloth on it, so I'm going to have to slice that off and do a bit of work there. And so it's either the Inceptor backpack or the classic jump pack. I'm leaning towards the classic jump pack at the minute, so I might change my mind, but we'll have a look. We could always decide that at the end, but I'm thinking to keep the same jump pack that he's got in the original image. And I found a cool head which looks similar to the head that was used on the original model, except this is a Primaris head. So this was off the Reaver set. So I'll use that, and there's a couple of Ultramarine accessories which we could place on at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cleaning them up and assembling the main body, and every time I get to an interesting part, I'll stop and I'll start filming and show you guys what I'm doing. So I've assembled the body, so this has just been glued together with polystyrene cement. And these had some pegs on the arms here, on the arm fittings, so I've just trimmed those off so we can pose up the arms really in a nice pose. Hopefully we can get some dynamic pose going on. I've glued the scenery piece to the base, so once the model is assembled and finished, we can pick the best position for him and a nice angle for him to be sort of positioned on there, and we'll pin that on. The backpack's been assembled as well, and this backpack actually fits quite nicely over the Inceptor body. Like I say, I mean, we'll have a look at the end. We might try the Inceptor backpack as well, but I think this might look cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the chainswords and then attach them together to make a longer chainsword, and then I'll also start trimming off the arm here as well, so we end up with the storm shield, which we'll place on an arm onto the body then as well. So I'll come back when I start getting to an interesting point with the chainswords. Okay, so I've cut the chainsword now. So I basically used two chainswords, and I cut the end off one of the chainswords at a slight angle so that the teeth were lined up. And then I did the same with the other chainsword. Obviously, just want it a little bit longer. It felt a bit short as it was. So I'm just going to use some poly cement. So this is just using a brush, an old brush. Just putting a bit on the end there. Don't need too much to begin with. You just want to line it up. So it took a bit of trimming just to get it exactly how we want it. So the first thing you want to do is just place it roughly where you want it. Make sure it's straight as well. So that looks good. And then now that it's in place, I'll just drop a little bit more the poly cement into the gap where the joint is, just to make it stronger. And I want to use a little bit more than usual here. So what I'll do is, once it's dry, I'll scrape it back with a knife and it will make that surface one surface again, because this is going to melt the plastic together. And then what I'll do next is I'll start trimming off that shield, which is going to take a little while, and I'll come back once I get back onto that. So the shield's been trimmed now, so I've basically taken the arm off the back. It was grim to do. Basically, I started by clipping out the bulk of it first with the clippers, and then slowly and carefully trimming back with the scalpel. And then when you get down to the area where you want it flat, just scraping gently away. So I've just left the hand and the wrist section on there, so we'll attach the arm on when we're ready. And I've also just filed it a little bit as well with the file, just to get it smooth on the back. So yeah, I mean, it was worth doing because it's a really cool shield, and I think it'll work with this Marine Captain. And the chainsaw's still drying, so we're just going to trim that back as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some arms, and we're going to pose up some arms with the weapons on. Probably do it with blue tack first, just to choose a cool pose. So I'll just get those arms ready now. Okay, so now I've got the arms on now, so I sort of loosely posed them up first with blue tack, and then sort of got them into the pose that I want. So we're going to have him sort of slightly leaning forward, so I wanted him with a sort of charging with the chainsaw pose. So this leg's back, so when the leg's back with a pose, it's nice to have the arm on that side forward. So this leg is forward, so this arm is back, so he's back with his shield. So it gives him sort of like a leaping, flying pose. And then I'm going to pin him onto the bit of scenery there to give him the illusion of flight as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up these joints where I've glued the hand on, and I'll probably have to do a bit of green stuff work there to make it the wrist area look convincing. And then I'm going to pin him onto the base and the pose I want, and then we'll come back to it after that and we'll have a look at it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just sculpt a little bit of piping just around his wrist. You can see there it's a bit messy. I want that to look nice. It's only just a little bit of putty work, so it won't be too bad, but obviously when it's painted it will look better. I'm not using green stuff, I'm using this stuff here. It's called Procreate. It's basically the same as green stuff, but it's grey, and I just like to use that. It's what I prefer, but it has the same working qualities. So you just mix the two parts together and then take the amount you need and then use that for your sculpting work. So I'm just going to place a little bit where I need it. You always find with any sculpting work you use less than what you think you'll need, so you'll always tend to put more on. So I'm just going to press that in. Just take off the excess that I need. So I'm going to sculpt that around, and then I'm just going to push into it to give it the rib texture that you see on Space Marines around the wrist. So I'm going to do that, and then once I've done that bit, I'm going to then pin it onto the base in the position I want. So I'm going to pick some, I've got like a box of different size wires. So I'm going to use quite a thick wire for this, because obviously he's going to be pushed around the tabletop. He's got to be robust, so I'm going to drill into the base and then drill into the bottom of his foot, and then I'm going to glue it into the bottom of the foot and then glue the whole model onto the base in the position I want. And when I drill, I'm going to use a pin vise with quite a thick drill bit, and I'll drill into there and then into the base as well. And it's going to allow me just to move it and bend it slightly with a bit of glue into the exact position. And then we'll come back once I've done that so you guys can see that. So I've got all the arms on now, and I've pinned him onto the base. Got a nice position for him. I've got him slightly tilted so he looks nice and dynamic. So he's charging forward. So the pin went through the back of the foot, and I've just sculpted over that just to bring the rock up a little bit to cover the pin. So it feels like, you know, you can't see the pin, so it feels a bit better. And it's going to be really solid as well, because the pin goes all the way through, and then with the green stuff on there as well, the putty on there, that's going to make it really solid. And I've just sculpted some piping onto the wrist as well, just to cover that. So I did try the Gravis backpack, the one that's intended for it anyway, and it's going to enclose the head a lot, so I feel like it's going to sort of take away from the miniature a bit. So I'm really leaning towards the classic backpack, just to give them a slightly lighter feel. So I'll probably go with that. And then you'll be able to see the head as well. So next stage, I'm going to just go and add a few accessories to him, just to pop him out a little bit, make him feel a bit special, and then I'll put him together and we'll have a look at the final model. So there we go. That's the finished model. So before anyone starts panicking, I've not glued the head in, and I've not glued the backpack on. They're just blue tacked on, so they can be taken off. So when it gets painted, it's going to be a lot easier. So I quite like the pose now. We've got some nice lines going through the model. So the chainsaw is following the line of the leg. Same here as well. It's very dynamic. We've got some nice lines. So when you're posing up models, it's nice to look for that sort of stuff, just to keep the pose working. And from the front is working as well. We've got some nice angles going on, contrasting with the base. Yeah, so it's kind of cool, and it's got a nice lean to him as well. So I've tilted the head that way, so when the head gets glued in, it'll follow that line. So he's got a nice dynamic feel as well. I was obviously leading his army. So yeah, so that's the conversion done, and I'll send that off, and those guys can get it painted, because I'm not going to paint it. So there we go. And as they say, when he hits the battlefield, it could be a problem. So there we go. Cheers, guys. Thanks.